The early morning sun cast a golden hue over the bustling streets of downtown Atlanta. Among the people navigating their way through the city was Jamal Carter, a 34-year-old man with deep brown skin, strong features, and a demeanor that exuded quiet confidence. Standing at 6 feet tall, he had the build of someone who took care of himself, not overly muscular, but strong, lean, and always moving with purpose. His dark eyes carried a warmth that put people at ease, yet there was something deeper beneath them, an awareness of the world's complexities. Jamal worked as an auto mechanic, running a small but reputable repair shop that had been passed down from his grandfather. He took pride in his work, ensuring every vehicle that rolled into his garage left in perfect condition. He was known for his honesty, a rare trait in his line of business, and customers often traveled from across town just to have their cars fixed by him. Beyond work, Jamal was a devoted son and brother. He had an older sister, Denise, who was a nurse, and a younger brother, Malik, a college student studying engineering. Their mother, Angela Carter, had raised them alone after their father passed away when Jamal was just 10. She had instilled in them the values of hard work, integrity, and, most importantly, kindness, even when the world wasn't always kind in return. Jamal had experienced his fair share of racial prejudice growing up. Whether it was being followed in stores, questioned for no reason, or having his skills doubted despite his years of experience, he had learned to let most things roll off his back. But deep down, he carried the weight of every moment, each experience shaping how he approached the world. Jamal's days started early. By 6 a.m., he was already up, lacing his work boots and sipping his first cup of coffee. He had a strict morning routine, one that kept him grounded. He'd go for a short jog, shower, and then head to his shop by 7:30 a.m. The scent of motor oil and rubber greeted him as he flipped the sign from closed to open. His first customers usually arrived by 8 a.m. Some were regulars, old friends who trusted him completely. Others were strangers, skeptical at first, but eventually won over by his expertise. He spent his day bent over engines, tightening bolts, diagnosing problems, and ensuring every customer left satisfied. Lunch was always quick, a sandwich from the deli across the street, eaten while reviewing invoices. Despite the demands of his work, Jamal made time for his employees, ensuring they felt valued. He knew what it was like to work hard and not be appreciated. After closing shop around 6 p.m., he often visited his mother's house to check in. They'd sit on the porch, reminiscing about old times or talking about Malik's progress in school. Occasionally, he'd stop by the community center, where he volunteered on weekends, mentoring young men who reminded him of himself at their age, full of potential but unsure how to navigate the world. By 10 p.m., he was home, unwinding with a book or watching a game before falling asleep, only to do it all over again the next day. Jamal's world was deeply rooted in Atlanta's historic West End, a vibrant neighborhood filled with culture, history, and a strong sense of community. The streets were lined with mom-and-pop shops, soul food diners, and murals that told stories of resilience. His auto shop, Carter's Auto Repair, was nestled between a barbershop and a bakery, both run by Black business owners who had known his family for generations. The shop itself was nothing fancy, just a modest garage with 3 service bays, a waiting area with well-worn chairs, and a desk cluttered with paperwork. But what it lacked in glamour, it made up for in reputation. People knew that if they brought their cars to Jamal, they'd be treated fairly. Just a few blocks away was Angela Carter's home, a modest single-story house with a wraparound porch where she had raised her 3 children. The neighborhood had changed over the years. Some of the old houses had been replaced by newer developments, and gentrification was creeping in, but the spirit of the community remained. People still greeted each other on the sidewalks, elders still sat on porches sharing wisdom, and kids still played in the streets until the streetlights came on. The city itself was a mix of old and new. Skyscrapers loomed in the distance, but the heart of Atlanta was still found in its neighborhoods, the soul food spots, the corner stores, the churches filled with gospel music on Sundays. It was a place where history was alive, where every street had a story. And yet, not everyone appreciated this world the same way Jamal did. He had seen the shift, the newcomers who moved in but never spoke to their neighbors, the people who clutched their bags when he walked by, the stares he sometimes got when he entered certain spaces. But he had learned to navigate it. Until one day, when a single act of kindness would put him in the spotlight in a way he never expected. Jamal wasn't a stranger to helping people. His mother had raised him that way. He believed in doing the right thing, even when it wasn't easy. But there were moments when he questioned it. Did people always appreciate kindness? Did they ever truly see him? Or just the image of who they thought he was? There had been times when he had stopped to help someone with a flat tire, only to be met with hesitation. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Other times, he had held the door open for someone, only to be ignored. It wasn't every day, but it was enough for him to notice. So, when he saw a woman in distress one afternoon, stranded by the side of the road, part of him hesitated. Would she see him as a helper? Or would she see him as a threat? He almost kept walking. But then, his mother's voice echoed in his mind, the same lesson she had repeated his entire life. Do good, Jamal, no matter what the world throws at you. And so, he stepped forward, unaware that his simple act of kindness would soon make headlines. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the city streets. Jamal had just finished grabbing a coffee from a small cafe near his shop when he noticed the car. It was a white luxury sedan, its sleek exterior standing in stark contrast to the gritty streets of West End Atlanta. But it wasn't the car itself that caught Jamal's attention. It was the woman standing beside it, frantically pacing as she stared at her phone. She was white, mid-30s, well-dressed, with blonde hair tied in a neat bun. Her business suit was crisp, her heels expensive, and everything about her screamed corporate professional. But right now, she looked completely out of place, lost, frustrated, and possibly panicked. Jamal watched as she sighed heavily, attempting to make a call, only to groan in frustration. He glanced at her car, a flat tire, and judging by her expression, she had no idea how to change it. He hesitated. Jamal had been in this position before, offering help only to be met with suspicion. Some people saw a kind stranger. Others saw something else entirely. But then, as if sensing his gaze, the woman looked up. Their eyes met for a brief moment before she looked away, continuing to tap furiously on her phone. He could have walked away, but his mother's voice echoed in his mind again. Do good, Jamal, no matter what the world throws at you. With a deep breath, he stepped forward. Hey, looks like you've got a flat, he said, keeping his tone calm and non-threatening. Need a hand? The woman's head snapped up, and for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Hesitation, uncertainty, maybe even fear. Jamal recognized that look all too well. The split-second calculation. Was he safe? Was he a threat? Could she trust him? She clutched her phone tighter. I already called someone, she stammered. They should be here soon. Jamal nodded, stepping back slightly to give her space. All right, he said easily. Just figured I'd offer. But if you change your mind, I'm a mechanic. I could have that tire changed in 10 minutes. She blinked. You're a mechanic? He chuckled. Yeah, Carter's Auto Repair. Been fixing cars since I was a kid. She looked at her phone again, then at her car, then back at him. Her posture softened, just slightly. How much would you charge? She asked hesitantly. Jamal shook his head. Nothing. Just helping out. That seemed to throw her off completely. She stared at him like he had just spoken a foreign language. Free? She repeated, as if the concept was completely alien to her. Yeah, he said simply. It's just a flat. A long pause. Then, finally, she sighed. All right, she muttered. Fine. Jamal crouched down, pulling out the spare tire from the trunk. He worked quickly and efficiently, years of experience making the job effortless. The woman, who had barely introduced herself as Claire Thompson, stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching him cautiously. So, do you do this often? She asked after a moment. Change tires? He smirked. Yeah, kinda comes with the job. No, she hesitated. Help people for free. Jamal tightened a bolt and glanced up at her. I help when I can, he said. Not everything's about money. She pursed her lips. Huh. Silence stretched between them. Then, her phone rang. She answered quickly. Yes? Oh, you're on your way? No, don't worry about it. Someone's already helping me. Yeah, thanks anyway. She hung up, looking almost embarrassed. Jamal stood, wiping his hands on a rag. All done. Claire looked at the tire, then back at him. That fast. Told you it'd only take 10 minutes, he grinned. She reached into her purse, pulling out a $50 bill. Here. Jamal shook his head. Nah, I told you. Take it, she insisted. He hesitated, but before he could respond, she stuffed the bill into his hand and quickly turned away. Thanks, she muttered. I have to go. And just like that, she got into her car and drove off without another word. Jamal watched as her car disappeared down the street, shaking his head with a small chuckle. Weird. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. The next morning, Jamal went about his usual routine. He arrived at Carter's auto repair early, grabbing a coffee from the corner shop before opening the garage. The scent of motor oil and steel filled the air as he prepared for the day's work. It was business as usual until his phone buzzed. At first, he ignored it. Then another buzz. And another. Finally, he checked. A flood of messages. Some from friends, others from numbers he didn't recognize. His social media notifications were blowing up. Confused, he opened one. Bro, you're all over the internet. Jamal frowned. What? Another message. Man, that lady did you dirty. His heart rate spiked. He quickly opened his Facebook app, and there it was. A viral post. A video, recorded without his knowledge, showed him helping Claire change her tire. But the caption beneath it made his stomach drop. This man made me so uncomfortable. I didn't know if I could trust him. Just another reason why women have to be careful in the city. You never know people's real intentions. It had thousands of shares. The comments were a mix of people agreeing, arguing, and dragging his name through the mud. He was being painted as a threat. Jamal's hands clenched around his phone. The woman, Claire, had twisted the entire situation. He had just been trying to help. And now, he was being portrayed as dangerous? A slow, burning anger bubbled in his chest. This wasn't just unfair. This was wrong. Before Jamal could even process the full weight of what was happening, his coworker Marcus walked in, waving his phone. Bruh, tell me you seen this, Marcus said, looking just as pissed off. Jamal nodded stiffly. Man, this is some straight-up bullshit. Marcus shook his head. She really out here making you look like a damn criminal for helping her? Jamal exhaled sharply. Looks like it. Marcus crossed his arms. You need to say something. This could mess with business, man. Jamal clenched his jaw. He knew Marcus was right. If people started associating his name with something negative, it could impact the shop. Customers might stop coming. People might start treating him differently. And the worst part? There was nothing he could do to erase what had already been posted. Jamal sat in his office, staring at the screen. Every comment felt like a punch to the gut. He was probably looking for an excuse to get close to her. She had every right to be scared. You can't trust random men in the city. He says he was just helping? Please, that's what they all say. Jamal's fingers curled into fists. He had spent his whole life trying to be a good man, to prove that not every black man was a threat. His mother had raised him to lead with kindness, to give without expecting anything in return. And yet, here he was, misunderstood, judged, condemned for doing the right thing. A part of him wanted to lash out, to fire back in the comments, to call Claire out for what she had done. But what would that accomplish? If he fed into the anger, wouldn't he just prove them right? No, he had to be smarter than that. But what was he supposed to do? Just sit back and watch as the internet dragged his name through the mud? Jamal's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the office door. Marcus stepped in, looking serious. Yo, you need to see this. Jamal sighed, rubbing his temples. What now? Marcus held up his phone. Another post had gone viral. But this one? It wasn't from Claire. It was from someone who had been watching the whole interaction from across the street. The new post read, I saw what happened yesterday. This man was nothing but kind and helpful. The way this lady twisted the story is sick. Here's what really went down. Attached was another video, one showing the full interaction. The way Jamal stood at a respectful distance. The way Claire hesitated but ultimately accepted his help. The way he refused the money. The truth was finally coming to light. Jamal stared at the screen, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Things were about to take a turn. Jamal scrolled through the new post, reading the caption and watching the video twice. His chest tightened as he scanned the comments. This time, they told a different story. Wow, this video shows the truth. She really lied on him. So, she was just uncomfortable because he was black? Disgusting. He helped her and didn't even ask for anything in return. This is sickening. Jamal felt a wave of emotions. Relief, frustration, disbelief. He had wanted the truth to come out. But even now, he wasn't sure how to feel. This new post was spreading just as fast as Claire's original one, and the internet had turned on her. Claire's comment section had been flooded with backlash. People were calling her out, demanding an apology, accusing her of being racist. Some even dug through her old posts, looking for patterns in her behavior. Marcus clapped a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "Bruh, you seeing this? People got your back." Jamal nodded slowly. "Yeah, I see it." But instead of feeling victorious, he felt exhausted. He never wanted any of this. All he had done was help someone. And yet, it had turned into something much bigger than him. Just then, Jamal's phone rang. An unknown number. Hesitating for a moment, he picked up. "Hello." A familiar, shaky voice came through the speaker. "Jamal, it's Claire." Jamal sat up straight. She took a deep breath. I don't know what to say. I messed up." Jamal didn't respond. He didn't trust himself to speak. Claire continued. When I made that post, I wasn't thinking. I was scared. And I let that fear turn into something ugly." Jamal stayed silent. She sniffled. "I saw the other video. I see what I did. And I see how wrong I was." Jamal exhaled slowly. "You really didn't think twice before putting my name out there like that?" His voice was low, steady. "I know," she whispered. "I was so caught up in how I felt in the moment that I didn't stop to think about what was real. I let my own biases take over. And I hurt you." Jamal swallowed. "Yeah, you did." A long pause. Then, Claire said something Jamal never expected to hear. "I want to fix this. I want to tell the truth." Jamal's fingers tightened around his phone. He had spent the last 24 hours drowning in anger and confusion. Now, the woman responsible was asking for forgiveness. He wasn't sure how to respond. Claire sighed. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to make this right." Jamal leaned back in his chair. "You can't erase what's already been done." "I know." Her voice wavered. "But I can own up to it." Another pause. Then, she said, "If you'll let me, I want to apologize publicly. On video. I want people to hear it from me." Jamal let out a slow breath. He had two choices. He could hold on to the anger, let it simmer inside him, or he could let her try to make it right. Finally, he spoke. "Do it." The next day, Claire's face appeared on a new video. This time, the story was different. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes puffy, her hands folded in her lap. Her voice was unsteady but firm. "I need to say something, and I need to say it publicly." Jamal sat with Marcus as they watched, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "I made a terrible mistake," Claire continued. "A man helped me in a moment of distress, and instead of showing gratitude, I let my own fear and biases cloud my judgment. I accused him of something he didn't do, and I let the internet run with it. That was wrong." She swallowed hard. "Jamal, I am so sorry. You didn't deserve that." Marcus side-eyed Jamal. "Wow, she actually said your name." "I want to be held accountable," Claire continued. "I understand now that my actions could have had serious consequences. I took the easy way out because I was scared, and that's no excuse." Jamal felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he saw genuine remorse in her eyes. The video ended with Claire saying, "I can't erase what I did, but I can try to be better. And I will." The internet exploded again. But this time, the conversation was different. Jamal scrolled through the new wave of comments. Respect for her actually admitting she was wrong. This is rare. Most people double down. I hope she actually learns from this. Jamal deserves a public apology in person too, not just a video. Marcus nudged Jamal. "Man, you see what's happening?" The narrative flipped. Jamal exhaled. "Yeah, it did." Then, a notification popped up. A direct message from Claire. He hesitated, then clicked on it. "Claire, I know a video isn't enough. If you're willing, I'd like to apologize to you in person." Jamal stared at the screen. Part of him wanted to ignore it. But another part, the part that refused to let bitterness win, felt like this was a moment bigger than just him. After a long pause, he typed back, "Jamal, let's talk." A week later, Jamal met Claire at a small cafe. She was nervous, her hands twisting in her lap. But when she spoke, it wasn't scripted. It wasn't forced. "I just wanted to say it to your face," she said softly. "I was wrong. And I'm sorry." Jamal studied her. He had spent so much time angry, replaying the moment she had turned on him. Now, sitting across from her, he realized something. He didn't want to carry that anger anymore. "You can't undo what happened," he said finally. "But you can do better moving forward." Claire nodded. "I will." And for the first time, Jamal believed her. As Jamal left the cafe, he felt lighter. Not because Claire's apology fixed everything. Not because the internet had changed overnight. But because he had chosen to move forward, not stay stuck in the past. He pulled out his phone, scrolling past the trending hashtags. His name was everywhere, but for the first time, it wasn't about what was done to him. It was about what he chose to do next. He looked up at the sky, inhaling deeply. A new beginning. And this time, it was on his terms.